Hey everyone, Brian Zayn here. Well, my voice might be a little raspy today, but my mind and my body are both feeling refreshed. It's Tuesday morning. I got back from Dallas yesterday afternoon, and I'm ready to give you my review of the two-night event known as WrestleMania 38 at AT&T Stadium. What a weekend it was in Dallas for me and the rest of the Regret crew. I don't use the word magical all that much, but it definitely felt that way at times for us. We went to WrestleCon, we went to Buc-ee's, we went to Supercard of Honor, we did the movie gimmick at Fair Park, we worked Hybrid Mania 2, and of course there was the two-night event, WrestleMania. We did originally plan to do a big group review in Dallas, like in the car after the show or at the Airbnb, but then by the end of the show on Sunday, we're like, you know what, we're all pretty dead tired and we have early flights the next day, so I'll take care of it later in the week. Quick disclaimer, this review is going to be kind of a combination of my own personal recollections of having been at the show both nights, and also on the moments and matches that I didn't recollect all that well when putting my notes together. I just went back and watched it on Peacock, so it's a bit different perspectives, and in fact watching some of those matches back on TV greatly influenced or greatly improved my impression of them. So with that out of the way, it's time to go into Saturday's show, beginning with the Smackdown tag title match as the Usos defend against Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs. And wow, it's crazy to think the bloodline literally bookends the whole weekend of Mania, from the opening match on Saturday to the main event on Sunday. This match was good, great athleticism by all four guys. Unfortunately, the story of this match is that Boogs tore his quadricep patella trying to lift both the Usos on his shoulders at once. Sounds awful. Hopefully he can come back from that quickly. I think all the three remaining guys did recover well enough. If you didn't watch that part, you kind of looked away for a minute and you watched the rest of it, you wouldn't really know that they had to cover for an injury like that. So I think they did a good job in that respect. Ultimately, the Usos double team Shinsuke to win the match and retain. It was hampered by that unfortunate injury, but like I said, they recovered well, good for the most part. It did feel kind of academic to begin with, because you knew Jimmy and Jay weren't going to drop those belts anytime soon. Up next, Drew McIntyre taking on Happy Corbin, and I have to say, it was a fine match, but I don't really have anything else to say. It wasn't better or worse than their previous encounters they've had over the last year or so. It was, again, good to see them both on WrestleMania, but you wonder, could there have been a better match for either of them? In the end, though, you've got Madcap Moss, who the previous night on Smackdown won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. He's a little too exuberant about Corbin's impending win here, so he gets on the apron, he distracts Corbin, and he ends up taking a Claymore for Drew to win the match. And then afterward, Drew takes his sword and he chops the ropes in half as he's swinging for the fences with Madcap Moss. 2.5 stars for this one. It's a match that didn't feel like it had any more stakes to it than what we'd already seen between them. It didn't feel like a better match, didn't feel like a worse match. Again, great to see him on WrestleMania, but this match to me felt like the most fillerist, the most you know what I'm saying when I talk about this match. Also, it's very apparent from the last couple of days, they seem to be building toward a Madcap Moss babyface turn for him to split away from Happy Corbin and do his own thing. And I'm definitely in favor of that, because I think that what I've seen of his stuff in the ring, I've always been impressed by. And so hopefully he'll find the right angle or the right kind of way to really break out and get over with fans. Up next, the Mysterios take on Logan Paul and The Miz. I have to say, there were a lot of special entrances for Mania weekend, and this one was one of my favorites for the Mysterios. The double launch out from the stage, wearing the Los Gringos Locos inspired gimmick. It's freaking phenomenal, and what a great moment for those guys. Logan Paul with his very expensive Pokemon card around his neck during his entrance. In-ring wise, he definitely set the tone for the celebrity matches you're going to see on this weekend, and he was, for his first match on WrestleMania, no pressure, I think he did pretty darn good given the circumstances. Might not have been fundamentally perfect, but still, again, pretty darn good. He could do the splits, he did Three Amigos, a picture perfect frog splash. Ray and Dominic, of course, have some frog splashes of their own, but in the end, Miz just hucks Dominic. Honda Ray hits a skull-crushing finale. The baddies win, but then the Miz turns on Logan. My favorite part, well, actually, that whole moment is great, because first, the Miz does this very cartoon villain mean mug for a while before he does it, and then Logan looks completely unfazed as the Miz is suddenly wrapping his arms very aggressively around his head and neck. That being said, I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 5. It was essentially a spot match to show show off, hey, look what Logan Paul can do. But the rest of the people in the match also did great. Just not much of like a riveting story attached to it. But yeah, as far as the match to get people going and again to show off what Logan Paul again and setting the tone for the other celebrity crossover matches you're going to see tonight, it definitely accomplished that goal. Up next, the Raw Women's Championship match as Becky Lynch defends against Bianca Belair. Cool entrances for both. Of course, the drumline entrance for Bianca as she makes her way out. I have to admit, our experience and our kind of perception of this match, watching it live, was made even greater by the fact that just in the section we were in, one row behind us was this young family, and there was this little girl about, I'd say 5 or 6 years old, who was just like screaming her head off for Becky, or for Bianca, I should say, the entire time. Keep in mind, we're in the nosebleeds. We are miles away from the ring, but this little girl is just screaming her heart out, just going, EST, EST, Becky Lynch is a loser. Bianca Belair, you have to do this. And like, we all were wrapped up in it too, and I would have felt so heartbroken for that girl had Bianca Belair lost. But this was just a great match from both ladies here. They really brought it, told a compelling story, great athleticism by both. Bianca with a fantastic 450 splash, Becky with the guillotine leg drop with Bianca draped over that rope, manhandle slam onto the steps, and the close call for the count out. In the end, the finish sees a big old KOD onto Becky. Bianca wins and becomes the Raw Women's Champion after what happened last year at SummerSlam. What a terrific turnaround. I give it 4 stars out of 5, and easily one of the best straight up matches of the evening in my opinion. The perfect face and heel dynamic, and with a satisfying conclusion. You know, I had my doubts about this cycle, about this arc we went on beginning again last year's SummerSlam, and being kind of disappointed with how that match went down and the initial first months of Bianca's trajectory after that. But I think the way they recovered and the way that this angle kind of wrapped up and came full circle, I think was really well done. It was a match that had everyone speculating and wondering, will they or won't they? And we finally got our answer when Seth F. Rollins took on his mystery opponent. It was Cody Rhodes. He's back in WWE, and he got everything, folks. He got to keep his last name. He got the theme song. He got the raising platform. He got the lifetime supply of rice-a-roni. He got the trip to Aruba. He got the new car. He got everything, man. You love to see it. And the pop for Cody was enormous. Like, I could feel the ground shaking under my feet when that reveal happened. And you know what? It was probably one of the worst kept secrets, or one of the easiest surprises to figure out. But again, everyone loved it. They wanted to see it, and they got it. Corey Graves making an Ocarina of Time reference on commentary. Cody busting out the Stardust taunt to start things off. That was amazing. As for the match itself, I think this was really well done by these guys. I'm not going to do blow for blow account for this one, but I did love the fact it felt very much like a Cody match. You had those big beats for the big emotions, because he was doing a lot of those like faces and the body language for the camera and everything. I think that really helped with the story. It was cool to see Seth busting out the reverse superplex into the reverse DDT. That's always cool to see. Cody ends up winning after hitting 2 consecutive crossroads, the flip-flop and fly, a 3rd crossroads, and then he finally wins the match, which, you know, kind of kills your finish when you hit 3 in a row like that, because now that's what it's going to take to beat somebody now is 3 crossroads. But hey, what do I know? I'm not a millionaire. I give it 4 stars out of 5, not just for the match, but just the moment of Cody's return. I mean, it was amazing. That was like a quality moment, one of the top moments of the entire weekend. And just like X Factor, he got everything he ever wanted, you know, and it's an amazing accomplishment. He left, he toured the Indies, he did ROH, he did All In, he helped start this, you know, new company and took a lot of shots at WWE in the process, and he came back and made bank. And he's going to be the executive producer of the Dusty Rhodes A&E biography. So like, it's incredible, the fact that he was able to do that for himself and be that kind of consummate businessman and getting that stuff. You know, it's kind of sad going online and seeing so many people kind of like feeling straight up angry at Cody. Like, I get being disappointed. Like, if your favorite guy, like, you know, goes and, you know, he goes back on from the AEW thing and you're raw AEW, and he goes to, you know, goes to a different company, or the one that you don't think he's going to be treated as well in. But just for people to say like, oh, he grifted the fans and he lied to the fans and he let everyone down and he can't be trusted and all that, it's like, it's wrestling. It's just wrestling. It's a business. It's all business. I think Cody and AJ Styles have to be like the only two people I can think of in the last several years who made their names outside of the WWE bubble, or at least got more fame and notoriety in Cody's case, and then like came back or went to WWE and didn't have to change a single thing about themselves, right on down to their logo. AJ doing that was obviously important. Cody's feels important too because of how he left and what he did while he was gone, and to come back and keep all that stuff was really amazing. I think it's a watershed moment in this era of wrestling. It was a moment and a great match to boot. We get the Hall of Fame segment. The Undertaker gets to do his farewell bow, not just here, but on Sunday as well, which was a pretty nice move. I will say Sundays where they cut the music off for a little bit, it was kind of weird at first. I'm like, oh no, is someone going to attack him? But it didn't happen. He was just kind of getting to soak in that moment with no music. But yeah, I thought it was a cool moment there. And his Hall of Fame speech, by the way, was pretty good as well. By the way, in case you missed it last week, I did rank all 27 of The Undertaker's WrestleMania matches. You can check that out right here. For the Smackdown Women's Championship, Charlotte Flair defends against Ronda Rousey. I have to say, this is a match I went back and watched on Peacock because I remember walking away from the show Saturday night and people having a really negative opinion about this matchup, and I kind of forgot a lot of what happened. And honestly, but when I went back to watch it, I think that it's better than a lot of people gave it credit for. Still not the best match, and certainly not the better of the two Women's Championship matches on this night. It was a very competitive match, some good back and forth. There was some creative submission and counter work here. I loved Ronda's top rope judo throw. At one point, Charlotte does a figure 8, but there's a wardrobe malfunction. In the end, Charlotte goes for another figure 4, but she gets shoved into Charles Robinson. He takes a big spear, clips the back of his head on the rope. Ronda tries to get him up, but she takes a big boot, and Charlotte wins to retain. I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 5. Like I said, it's an okay match, but not as emotionally interesting as Bianca Becky, not quite as dramatic, I would say, and the finish was not great either. I will say, my barometer for this was, well, that girl behind us, she wasn't screaming for this match like she was for Bianca and Becky. Main event time, or main event segment time, I should say. It's the KO show. Kevin Owens interviewing Stone Cold Steve Austin. As Kevin was making his way to the ring, I forget who in my group said it, but somebody said, man, it's crazy to think, Jim Cornette's words about Kevin Steen all those years ago, and how he's probably eating those words now after seeing, like, here he is in the main event of one of the nights of WrestleMania. It's like, what a path he had. Kevin says he's going to tell Steve Austin how much he sucks to his face. There's nothing he can do about it. Stone Cold interrupts him with the music. It's one of the biggest pops of the night, of course. Austin shows up. He goes back, grabs the ATV, and rides around the ring while KO just sits there. Austin sits down, and KO reveals that this interview segment was a ruse. He wants to challenge Austin to a fight right then and there. Austin accepts. The bell rings, and my God in heaven, it's Steve Austin's first official match in 19 freaking years. It's a brawl and, like, not much else, but you know what? It's Steve Austin in a match, so hell yeah. Like, they're fighting all over the place, outside the ring, in the crowd and whatnot. Austin taking many breaks to drink beer as this match goes on. Like, he's pacing himself. You got to get that new Stone Cold lager over best you can. Austin takes a bump on the floor, big suplex on the floor, and that allows Kevin to take over. And it wasn't uncommon during Austin matches for the cutoff to be like a pile driver or a suplex attempt that backfires, boom, suplex on the floor. But to see Austin doing that at his age after so long away from the ring, that was pretty hard to see. You crazy, man. Long story short, Kevin Owens hits the stunner, Austin kicks out, Kevin goes for a chair, Austin dodges it, hits his own stunner, wins the match, more beer, more stunners, happy crowd, night 1 is over. Man, how do you rate something like this? I'd say, maybe 3 stars for the match, but a 5-star segment overall. Great body language by Austin during Kevin's promo when they're face to face. Awesome to see Austin live and having a match. I got to see what I thought was his last match 19 years ago in Seattle, and it was pretty rad to see his first match back as well. What a night for Kevin Owens. Great return for Steve Austin. Is this going to mean, that inevitable, Saudi match? Who knows? But at least in this moment, it really warmed my heart. And, young Brian Zayn was definitely grinning from ear to ear with Austin coming back and having that match. Night 2 on Sunday opened in big fashion with Triple H. Of course, it was a week or two ago where he announced his in-ring retirement due to his heart condition. He does his entrance, he hugs his kids at ringside, and you see the boots in his hand. And man, I was not prepared to see that moment there. Triple H, he puts the boots down, leaves them in the ring. He welcomes the fans to WrestleMania, and that's it. What a short and to the point and understated and humble move by Triple H for a guy who, like, his whole career, in the prime of his career, was all about, you know, the 20-minute promos and the self-glorification in the promos and the character and stuff like that. For him to leave it down to just like putting the boots down, thank you, welcome to Mania, and pieces out. That was a classy move, really classy way to say goodbye. A hell of a career for Triple H, to be sure. The first match on Sunday was for the Raw Tag Titles as RK Bro defended against the Street Profits and the Alpha Academy. A great match to open night one. These three teams are just killing it right now on Raw at the moment. Montez Ford taken to the skies, of course, going over the top rope and the corner post to the outside. Riddle takes a lot of the heat in this matchup until he gets the hot tag to Randy. He's dropping fools on the tables, really seems to be enjoying himself out there. You also got he and Riddle doing the DDTs in stereo, the big taunt together, a super blockbuster by the Profits. The biggest highlight had to be Riddle's springboard RKO onto Ford, Orton catching Chad Gable in midair for the final RKO, and the champions retain. I'll give it 3.5 stars out of 5. This was a good opening match for Mania, great athleticism on display. I enjoyed seeing the evolution of the relationship of Orton and Riddle, again, kind of coming more to fruition here with the stereo moves. Again, Gable and Otis, got to give them credit. These two have absolutely grown on me as a team, and I liked their work here. We get some sportsmanship with the Profits and RK Bro. They're about to share some drink, but then they invite Gable Steveson to the ring. Stephanie did a big thing for him the night before. He got a shout out again before this match. But then Chad Gable comes back in and he wants to shoosh Steveson, who just grabs and suplexes him to end the segment. In a match with less than 1 week of build, Bobby Lashley came back to challenge Omos to a match here, and it's a pretty simple story. Omos spends a lot of it looking pretty dominating against Lashley here, throwing him around. And it's visually confusing to me. It was kind of a mind melt because you realize Lashley is still a very large person, and the fact that Omos is throwing him around makes him look even more impressive in his own right. Kind of a scary spot here where Lashley actually hits the back of his head on the turnbuckle post. Ouch. Lashley with a big vertical suplex, picking up Omos, getting him off his feet. A spear to the back, a spear to the front. Lashley wins this one. This one gets 1.5 stars out of 5 for me. It was not a pretty match by any means, but I did appreciate the story. I'm honestly surprised Lashley won at this point. You know, I thought it was a good redemptive win for him after what had happened earlier in the year with the title. But in the moment of that match, I didn't think it did any favors for Omos, honestly, because the way they've been building him up, the fact that he had kind of like also destroyed 2 other giants in his wake in Commander Aziz and Shanky. And then for Lashley to beat Omos like that, I thought, well, gosh, now what for that kind of loss to happen? But then what happened on Monday, the Raw after Mania, we see MVP turning on Lashley, aligning himself with Omos. And actually, I think it's pretty smart when I think about it, because Lashley, he's not the best talker in the world, but he doesn't need a mouthpiece nearly as badly as Omos does. I think MVP fits that role very well. I think it's going to help Omos certainly in the long run. So there is that. Up next, anything goes as Sami Zayn takes on Johnny Knoxville, aka Jackass the Match. This whole thing was pure fun. Knoxville got his ass kicked a few times this match for sure, but he also had a lot of help in the form of his friends from the Jackass show, like Chris Pontius as Party Boy, like Wee Man, who body slammed Zayn, and which made the whole place erupt. That was one of the biggest pops of the whole night. We get the giant high five hand out of nowhere. We got the Dick Kick City Machine that was featured in the movie, and finally to top it all off, we got a giant mousetrap covered table. Sami is eventually slammed through it, and Knoxville then produces a giant mousetrap. They put Sami in it. It almost fucks up, but they recover. Zayn is trapped, and Knoxville gets the cover and the win. You know, this match has generated a lot of contrasting opinions, a lot of big opinions and emotions felt about this match. You know what? I give 4.5 stars out of 5. This was the most entertaining match I saw all night. Big credit to Sami Zayn for his performance in this entire storyline and the match itself. He plays this great, goofy, comedic foil to Knoxville. The introduction of the other Jackass characters and the references to their film universe was funny as well. The crowd dug pretty much everything. Sami's selling is what really put it over the top and made it so entertaining. Yeah, the mousetrap thing was goofy, but the whole match was goofy. What are you going to do? I'm surprised Knoxville was as physical as he was. Like I said, super entertaining match. I would would definitely watch it again. Women's Tag Team Championship match next, as Queen Zelina and Carmella defend against Natalya and Shayna Baszler, Sasha Banks and Naomi, and Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, the Leather Mamas. Corey Graves on commentary, essentially promising everyone a live sex celebration should Carmella retain in this matchup here. Liv takes the heat for a while in this thing. Later on, there's a funny moment where Rhea picks Zelina up and kind of handles her like a child, which is pretty great. Queen Zelina busted out a big top rope moonsault to the outside, double Tower of Doom by Morgan and Ripley. I like the Riptide backstabber combo as well. Banks and Naomi with a facebuster codebreaker combo on Carmella for them to become the new tag team champs. I give it 3 stars out of 5. Match began a little choppy, but things really picked up by the end, I think. You know, for a division that doesn't get much care and attention, that's certainly not on the part of the women. That's not their fault because they brought it here. I think everyone did a good job. Good for Sasha to finally win a WrestleMania match. Another great accomplishment for Naomi as well. Up next, Edge taking on AJ Styles in what they're regarding as a generational battle here. AJ with some battle damage from the get-go. He's got a bit of a mark on his face. Apparently he bumped into part of the set or something just before going out. Edge's entrance was amazing. The throne ascending, the flames all around him with that new altar bridge theme. The entrance was dope. Some quick back and forth to start things off. AJ going for a springboard 450, but Edge gets the knees up. There's a moment here where Styles just decks Edge with a single punch and takes him down. There are a few too many double downs in this match that I have to admit, in the moment of watching that match, I felt real bored and legit started nodding off. I had to rewatch it again actually on Peacock in order to kind of get a proper sense of what happened in this match here. It does all translate better on screen, but again, in the moment, it was kind of hard to get through. AJ sells the arm in a major way, has a great babyface comeback, some great sequences here. A superplex on the apron almost ends in a double countout. AJ gets ready for the phenomenal forearm when suddenly a gothic Damian Priest appears and stands menacingly. The distraction allows Edge to spear AJ in midair for the win. Edge and Damian share a laugh. I give it 4 stars out of 5, and I'm going to be honest, if I had just based this match off my opinion from seeing it live, it would have been a whole lot worse. So I'm glad I rewatched it on Peacock to get a better sense of what the match was about here. I suppose like my thoughts at the time had to do with just time with the match placement on the card and also my own personal fatigue level at that point in the show. Much better on a second look. A great match, but still went a little long for my taste. A few too many double downs in my opinion. I think if they had cut 5 or 6 minutes off this match, it might have been perfect. As for Edge and Damian Priest as a unit, I'm definitely interested in seeing where this goes moving forward. I love the potential for new members to be added to the group based on what's been rumored. It feels a little House of Black vibes, what I'm getting from this one, especially on Sunday. I don't know, it's the vibe I got. What about you? The New Day take on Ridge Holland and Sheamus in a match that's most memorable for 2 things. The fact that Xavier and Kofi were wearing Big E's singlets and entrance robes is a tribute to him, and for how god-awful short and pointless this match was. There was a moment early on where I think it looks like Butch Pete Dunne like either missed his cue or there wasn't contact when he got on the apron or something. It was short and clunky and just like a couple of brogue kicks, and then that was it. Sheamus and Ridge win. Half star with this one. Rough going. Apparently this match was slated for night 1, but then bumped for time, and then this happened. I mean, I would have rather just put it on like the WrestleMania Smackdown or something, or the Raw after Mania, than what we ended up getting. This match was just, sorry, it was just kind of bad. In our last celebrity match of the evening, Pat McAfee takes on Austin Theory. Mr. McMahon actually opens the segment. He comes out first and he introduces Theory as a future Universal Champion. That to me immediately did 2 things. 1, it spoiled the finish for the main event, and 2, kind of felt like a kiss of death for Theory, right? That's the vibe I got, because I remember vividly when Vince did the same thing for Drew McIntyre many years ago. Sure, he would become a future WWE champion like he said he would, but there were some big bumps on the road to get there. So it's good luck for Austin Theory on this run is all I'm going to say. Pat came out to 7 Nation Army, which the crowd sang along for almost the entire match, and sadly for almost the entire walk back to our car. I got a little tired of it is what I'm saying. Pat was great in this match, some great athleticism, but what made the match even better was going back and watching and hearing Michael Cole's commentary. He was such a blatant super homer for his best friend Pat and everything, and it really just made the match that much more fun to watch. Pat at one point getting on his own headset talking trash. Cole says, I didn't even do that in my match. Goes for a swanton, does Pat, but he gets none of it. The vertical leap on the guy is ridiculous. He backflips off the top rope onto his feet, leaps back up for the superplex to Theory. Holy crap. Theory going for ATL, but McAfee rolls him up and he wins the match. match. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. This was another fun showing for McAfee. You know what, if you want to include the crowd reaction and Michael Cole's commentary, we can bump up to 4 if we want. I just think that really helped add to the match. But as a straight up match, 3.5 is what I'm going to give it here. After the match though, Pat is jaw-jacking with Vince, who takes off his jacket and rips off his shirt to reveal the tank top. Holy crap, it's actually happening. Vince McMahon is in his first WrestleMania match in 12 years. What is life right now? Theory with a couple of cheap shots rendering Pat completely defenseless against McMahon's brutal assault. Theory handing Vince a football, and after some teasing, Vince ever so gently kicks the ball into McAfee's ribs, the cover and the win. I'm not sure what metal that football was made of to incapacitate McAfee so much, but Vince finally wins his first WrestleMania match. It only took like 6 tries. The baddies celebrate for a minute, then Stone Cold Steve Austin makes his way to the ring, hits the new Austin with a stunner that he sells amazingly. Then after some build, Austin, well, he tries his best, but old Vince could never take a good stunner, now could he? Well, the match itself was lousy, and Vince's sell of the stunner was horrific. What would you expect from a 76-year-old man? But you know what? It was all funny to me. I give it 3 stars out of 5. And by the way, Pat's drinking of the beer on the outside was funny too. Main event time, it's winner take all championship unification as Brock Lesnar takes on Roman Reigns. And here's pretty much how it went down. There were suplexes, spears, Superman punches, an eye rake, a Kimura. Reigns wins with another spear, unifies the titles, and that's the biggest WrestleMania match of all time, folks. I give it 2 stars out of 5, and like, wow, that was it? That's your biggest WrestleMania match of all time? Like, it was short and sweet. There were some cool explosive moments here and there, but it wasn't that interesting. I felt like it was just kind of a rehash of some of the worst and most boring elements of the previous 2 matches that they had at WrestleMania, which is super disappointing because I feel that I was ready for this one. I felt that, okay, the face and heel dynamic, it lines up the way we want it to. It feels right. You know, like whoever wins, let's all have fun and be safe. But no, like it was just like, man, it was another like boring suplexy, spammy match. And there wasn't much to it, and Roman wins and unifies the belts. We don't even get The Rock to show up at the end. Like, what a kind of a wet fart of a finish ending on this one. Not saying Roman shouldn't have been the champion to unify them. It makes the most sense in the world, but the match that, you know, we got to get there, I thought was pretty disappointing, especially watching live. Well, after all that, folks, my grade for all of WrestleMania 38, 2 nights together, is a B+. Now, were these the 2 best nights of wrestling in Dallas that weekend? No, absolutely not. There were a few good matches throughout that on their own in a bubble you could say, oh, that's a very good match, but it wasn't exactly consistent in that regard. Now, were these 2 of the best nights of sports entertainment in Dallas that weekend? Oh, you betcha. There was a lot of gaga, there was a lot of spectacle, which is all what WrestleMania is about. You know, the more we do this, the more we see it, the more we realize it's not about the wrestling at WrestleMania. It never has been. It's always been about the spectacle, and good wrestling is just an unintentional consequence half the time. But there was a lot of good spectacle on this one. I think that all 3 celebrity matches really defied expectations. Like, this is the era now. We have a generation of like athletic celebrities who can actually do things now and actually have entertaining matches if they're properly motivated and all the stars align here. So I think, you know, McAfee, I think Knoxville, I think Logan Paul all did great. Cody Rhodes' return was one of the biggest things all weekend. I think it rivals the Hardy Boys coming back in Orlando at 33. Lynch versus Belair was the best women's match across the weekend. Austin versus Owens was a great moment to see Austin come back there. Vince's stunner cell, it was the worst and the best all at the same time. What can I tell you? Only a few real weak spots on this thing as a whole. Now, I'd say that night 2 especially was a great night if you were, you know, a celebrity or from the Attitude Era, because they had a lot of great moments for all those folks. And you know what? I think a lot of people are going to say, oh, the youth, this and that. Like, who are the stars going to be in the future? Who are they building? I think the people who lost on these nights, they're going to be the stars of the future that are going to go over on the stars of tomorrow. That just seems to be the thing I'm seeing here. Night 1, definitely stronger than night 2. Night 2, I think it was, again, it was fatigue, but also I think just the way it stacked up, night 1 was a better night than night 2, in my opinion. But overall, way more positive about this show, in my opinion, both nights, than there was negative. So I'm going to give it a B+ overall. I was very entertained with how this weekend went for Mania. But what did you all think, folks? Did you think it was a stupendous 2 nights? I think maybe that's a bit strong of a word, but I thought it was still great overall. What did you think? I want to hear what you have to say in the comments section below. Stay tuned for next Wednesday when I have my big Dallas Mania 38 weekend vlog with me and the rest of the Regret crew. It was a lot of fun, and I hope I can just capture a portion of the good vibes and the good times that I had this past weekend in Dallas and can express that adequately in the vlog next week. But until then, folks, I'm Brian Zayn, and I'll see you next time.